and welcome to UCOV. I am Marianne Kerner, a proud member of this congregation, where we strive to be a beacon of liberal religion for Florida's Sun Coast, and a refuge for all who seek a welcoming community, no matter your color, your creed, your ability, that's good, or class, no matter who you love, your gender expression, your political affiliation, or religious belief. Here we celebrate our differences as we learn from one another. If you'd like to know more about this congregation and its many opportunities for learning, please, you can peruse our calendar and announcements on Facebook or on our webpage at uucov.org. If you're joining us online, please consider navigating over to the donate button and clicking it and giving as generously as you can. If you're joining us, we hope you'll find something that this service speaks to you and maybe lifts you up or challenges you in ways that lead to spiritual reflection and personal growth. We're glad you've chosen us. Welcome to church today. If you're visiting us for the first time, anybody crazy enough to come to Florida in July? Or if you've come back from someplace, please let us know. Who are you? Where are you? Why did you come back? No, we welcome you heartily. Anybody have any announcements? This is a first, so enjoy.
I'll be playing Gershwin, Prelude number 1.
Start the service without the singing bowl, which I forgot to do. We light our chalice this morning to remember our 6th and 7th principles. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and respect for the independent web of all existence, of which we are all a part.
Good morning, I'm Reverend Amy Petrie Shaw. My pronouns are she or they, and welcome, welcome, welcome here this morning. We open today with words from Reverend Elizabeth Gwen, and she says this: nationalism is here in our country, and people on all sides of the political divide struggle with what is moral and ethical. Sometimes peace is hard to find. Spirit, I would really rather not learn this. I didn't think I needed to. I thought that someone else could do it, thought a leader was coming to do it, or the young people could do it, or the elders could do it, or the professionals. I didn't want to learn it because it meant letting go of something I hold dear. Letting go of being someone who knows the answers, letting go of being someone who doesn't know, letting go of the way I see the world, letting go of how I might have to change, letting go of certainty, of logic, of facts, of control, of the myth that you can live on the earth and not cause harm, or the myth that I can't learn anything new. Help me to learn it, please, and then help me to live what I have learned and to do right by this gift of being taught. So we gather here today in community for exactly this: to live, to learn, and to do right by the gift of being taught. So come and let us worship together. Please take just a second to say hello or to introduce yourself to the people around you. Please rise in body or spirit as you are willing and join in singing hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit. Into one flame, it is the This point in our service is our children's chapel, where we explain to the smallest among us who are either here and present or following along at home exactly what it is we're going to be talking about later in the service. So what are we talking about today? Well, we're talking about the difference between being a patriot and being a nationalist. And nationalist is a really big word, and it sounds like a good word. You know, you think, I'm a nationalist. What's wrong with that? But there's a big difference between those two words, and we like being patriots. Being patriotic can be wonderful. But being a nationalist isn't always so good. Being a patriot is about loving your country and being proud of your country and being willing to say when your country screws up, hey, we didn't do so good at that. Maybe we need to do better next time. A patriot can criticize their country. A patriot can help their country do better. A nationalist says, well, I want my country to succeed and the rest of you, well, not so much. My country's better than your country. And that's kind of a mean thing to say, but it also is not in line with our values, which say we value all the countries. We think they're all good countries. We just like ours a lot. But it's okay to like another country too. It's okay to be from Canada and living here and like Canada just as much. It's okay to like Mexico. It's not okay to like that sound. But it's okay to like wherever you're from or where your ancestors are from and to be very, very proud of it. So today we're talking about the difference between what it means to be a patriot and what it means to be a nationalist. And for those of you too small to remember, we fought a whole war, World War II, about the fact that nationalism is bad. Nationalism is bad. There's no good way to be a nationalist. We sent lots and lots of people off to war to make sure that nationalists didn't get control of our planet. And we're still fighting that fight today, as you use. So that's what we are talking about today. I ask you all to help me. I don't know, actually, if the children going out today? Do you guys know? Yes. You're going to help me sing the children out to their classrooms with the Reed benediction. Giving is a sacred practice, and we want to cultivate generosity, not just of the wallet, but of the heart and the mind and the spirit. And that's why we give every week, not to make a lot of money, but to remind us that giving is a theological practice. Now, our offering words are offered with levity because giving should never hurt. A rich vacuum salesman was tired of his church asking for money. And one day he got so tired of it, he drove to the pastor's house and he burst through the door. And the pastor was a little surprised to see him, especially since the man was dragging a top-of-the-line vacuum and a big bag. The pastor calmly looked up from his candlelight dinner and said, "Mr. Smith, what can I do for you?" "I've come to make you a deal," Smith said. And with that, he opened the bag and dropped fresh cow patties on the floor. Then he plugged the sweeper in. "The deal is this, my sweepers are so good, I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to clean up that whole disgusting mess in under 7 minutes. If I can do that, you are going to promise to buy a sweeper, and then to leave me alone about pledging." "What if you can't do it?" the minister said with interest, still calmly eating his candlelight dinner. "Oh, you don't have to worry about that," Smith said. "But if I can't do it in 7 minutes from when we say deal, I will pledge $10,000 this year. Do we have a deal?" "Deal," said the minister with a smile. Minister watched quietly as Mr. Smith flipped the vacuum on and nothing happened. Beginning to sweat, Smith flipped the switch 3 or 4 more times. "I hope you have your checkbook handy," the minister said. "Power's been out since yesterday." Since I don't open my door to salespeople or vacuum salesmen, the morning offering will have to be given and received this morning. Thank you all so much for everything that you do for the life and the work of this community. Because the church isn't the building. The church is the community. It's the people. And it's as a community of human hearts and human hands that we come together here to share our laughter and our tears. We're entering into a time of sharing our joys and concerns. You can raise a hand. Someone will bring you a microphone. We ask that you only share what is yours to share with permission. During the service or at any time before the service, you're always welcome to come up and light a candle on the candle table. So if anyone has a joy or a concern to share, please raise your hand, and Marcia is going to bring you a mic.
Hi, I'm Donna Jewett, and I just want to remind you that we have a Meatless Monday tomorrow, and I have to say this is a real joy for me because not only do we have a lot of fun, great food, but we are making a difference in the planet just by switching over all of our thinking about what we're eating and consuming. So there's a little blurb out there. You can sign up and join us. It'll be more fun. Hi, I'm Nancy Minotti Scanlon, and I have sorrow and a joy. It's tied in together. The sorrow is that my sister-in-law, who's been struggling with ovarian cancer for 3 years, passed away 3 days ago. But the joy part of it is that she gave us an incredible example of how to die, which sounds really strange, but she was so courageous and never complained. And she just kept saying, I accept it, I accept it. And I'll tell you, if we can learn that lesson, I think we'll all live a lot better.
Well, Dick and I have a celebration. It certainly expresses a lot of commitment, but on Wednesday we note our 65th wedding anniversary.
I wanted to share with you that last Wednesday, we had a memorial for my late husband who died in March, Richard M. Kerner. It was held in our house, which he loved, and it went off so beautifully, unexpectedly beautifully. My family, I don't anyone here have a functional family? We all pulled together and it was a beautiful event and it gave me a sense of closure, even though the road is still to be traveled, but I'm feeling a lot more acceptance than I did. So thank you all.
Hello, I'm Phil Kramer, just at Joy. This Saturday, I'm celebrating my 17th wedding anniversary. And if I got the two numbers right, I will be celebrating my
I too have a joy. This wonderful young lady sitting next to me is going to make me a grandmother again. We just found out. So we're thrilled to death. We kind of missed the announcements, so I'm going to take this moment to give the search committee announcement. In 6 months, I know it's hard to believe, in 6 months we are going to be entertaining a list of candidates, people that would like to candidate with us. As you've heard about the survey, I'm sure, the search committee is dedicated to completing this first part, big part, very well. And with that in mind, we are phoning each and every member. So expect to receive a phone call if you haven't already. We just want to check and see if you were able to get the link and fill it out. You know, it's a tricky time with this congregation because just as we're getting going, the congregation is kicking back, going on vacation, going north, but your input is still very much needed because this gives us the data that we need for our next step, the cottage meetings, which are going to start actually very soon. And the number of responses we get, that's an important marker of how engaged the congregation is in our future. And these specific questions have been refined over many years by our association to get the kind of information that ministers, candidating ministers need, and they're going to compare our answers with other congregations that are similar to us. So it's a very important process. You know, if you have to skip a question or two, go ahead, but just fill it out if you can. And if you're part of a couple, I understand some people feel like they want to fill it out as a couple. You know, we'll gratefully accept that. But if you're feeling extra enthusiastic, you can each fill one out, and we would appreciate that. So in one sense, we're not in competition with other congregations because we're unique. Each congregation is unique. And candidates will be drawn to ones that align with their style, their goals, what they feel called to do in the world. But we are in competition with ourselves to do the very best we can in this next step of thriving and growing, of moving into the next step that this congregation wants to take. That's my announcement, and thank you very much for your time.
And I'll add on to that the joy of calling a new minister is so amazing. And one of the things that this survey helps to do is to make sure that it's the right minister for you. By knowing what it is you want, and you may not think it's a big deal. You may think, I'm only one little voice. But the statistics hold that all it takes to ruin a ministry is 10 people. 10 people in a congregation that get together and agree that they don't like the minister. We do these surveys that they have a very real reason so that your search committee, who's working hard to try to find you the best possible minister, so that if there's something you just love and that you want in your new person, if you want them to be an incredible preacher, and that matters most, if you want them to be great at pastoral care, and that matters most, they gotta know, who are you, who is this congregation, and what is it you want? So please, please, please fill these out. It helps them to understand who they're looking for, rather than shooting blind. And while we're not in competition, it really does matter when a minister sees that nobody fills out the surveys. Nobody cares what kind of minister is coming. And another church, everybody fills it out. Everybody's got opinions. That's information that we use to help decide which church to go to. So be excited. This is one time in your life where having opinions is awesome. Have them as hard as you can and all at the search committee, please. May the love of this community hold all who need love and concern, and may the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May we never look away when we're needed. May those who are grieving be comforted and tired find rest. May the broken places be healed, and may those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant.
Our reading today echoes a lot of what Amy has already said about patriotism and nationalism, but it bears repetition. It's by John Milton Moore, and it's entitled Orwell on the Difference Between Patriotism and Nationalism. I have my glasses. A prominent intellectual at a private meeting was asked the difference between patriotism and nationalism. His response was similar to the explanation Justice Potter Stewart once offered on the difference between obscene speech, otherwise known as porn, and protected speech. His answer, I know it when I see it. George Orwell, in his essay Notes on Nationalism, offered a much better answer. Nationalism is not to be confused with patriotism. Both words are normally used in so vague a way that any definition is liable to be challenged. But one must draw a distinction between them, since two different and even opposing ideas are involved. By patriotism, I mean devotion to a particular place and a particular way of life which one believes to be the best in the world, but has no wish to force on other people. Patriotism is of its nature defensive, both militarily and culturally. Nationalism, on the other hand, is inseparable from the desire for power. The abiding purpose of every nationalist is to secure more power and prestige, not for himself, but for the nation or other unit in which he has chosen to sink his own individuality. It's a clear and simple distinction. Patriotism is primarily a feeling. Orwell implies, hence, it is a defensive nature. Nationalism seeks something. It is desirous of power, prestige. Orwell notes that the World War II era nations of Germany and Japan are the most obvious and notorious examples of nationalism. However, in the essay, he complains more than once that the word nationalism fails to fully capture the meaning of the emotion he's attempting to describe. I am only using the word nationalism for lack of a better, he writes. He explains shortly thereafter what he means. A nationalist is one who thinks solely or mainly in terms of competitive prestige. He may be a positive or a negative nationalist. That is, he may use his mental energy either in boosting or in denigrating. But at any rate, his thoughts always turns to victories, defeats, triumphs, and humiliations. He sees history, especially contemporary history, as the endless rise and decline of great power units and every event that happens seems to him a demonstration that his own side is on the upgrade, and some hated rival is on the downgrade. Nationhood, Orwell makes clear, has nothing to do with nation states. At its heart is political fanaticism, or more accurately, deep-seated tribalism. The nationalist does not go on the principle of simply ganging up with the strongest side. On the contrary, having picked his side, he persuades himself that it is the strongest and is able to stick to his belief even when faced with the facts that are overwhelmingly against him. Nationalism is power-hungry, tempered by self-deception. Every nationalist is capable of the most flagrant dishonesty, but he is also, since he is conscious of serving something bigger than himself, unshakably certain of being in the right. Forgive me for saying this, and I don't think this is Orwell speaking. This last part seemed to hit rather close to home. By home, I mean modern America. And I'm not talking about the spike in the usage of the phrase post-truth. The idea that modern Americans live in echo chambers is a concept so worn, one hesitates to use the phrase lest they lose points for reciting a cliche. But that seems to be precisely the idea that Orwell was getting at. In fact, to Orwell's definition of the term, one could look at modern America and ask, are we all nationalists now? My hunch is that most people would answer, without a sense of irony, I'm not. They are. Please join me in a minute of silent meditation, thought, or prayer. I have been told to read the following lyrics from Bob Dylan's With God on Our Side. I have taken the liberty of not saying it, but trying to sing it. You will notice that I have absolutely nothing to do with Bob Dylan's voice. I don't have his harmonica or his guitar, but I think the message is clear either way. Oh, my name, it is nothing. My age, it is less. The country I come from is called the Midwest. I was taught and brought up there, the laws to abide, and the land that I live in has God on its side. Oh, the history books tell it, they tell it so well. The cavalry's charged, the Indians fell. The cavalry's charged, the Indians died. Oh, the country was young, with God on its side. Oh, the First World War, boys, it closed out its fate. The reason for fighting I never got straight, but I learned to accept it with pride. For you don't count the dead when God's on your side. When the Second World War came to an end, we forgave Germans and thought we were friends, though they murdered 6 million in the ovens they fried. The Germans now too have love on their side. I've learned to hate Russians all through my whole life. If another war starts, it's them we must fight. To hate and to fear them, to run and to hide, and accept it all bravely with God on our side. But now we got weapons of the chemical dust. If fire them we're forced to, then fire them we must. One push of the button and it shot the world wide. And you never ask questions when God's on your side. So now, as I'm leaving, I'm weary as hell. The confusion I'm feeling, ain't no tongue can tell. The words fill my head and fall to the floor. If God's on our side, He'll stop the next war. That's the Bob. Our centering song today is America, better known as My Country 'Tis of Thee. And the words will be on the screens. There are things in this song that may feel uncomfortable today. Gendered language, calling on God in a secular patriotic song. but there's also beautiful images of our finest patriotic aspirations. We sing it today to remind us that all of it, the good and the bad, are what make up our country.
Lovely job. Years and years ago, Stephen Van Zandt wrote, "I'm a patriot and I love my country because my country is all I know. And I want to be with my family, the people who understand me, because I've got nowhere else to go. And I ain't no communist, I ain't no capitalist, I ain't no socialist, I ain't an imperialist, I ain't no Democrat and I ain't no Republican. I only know one party, and that's freedom. I am a patriot." Bob Dylan didn't like that word. He rewrote the words of Samuel Johnson and said, "Patriotism is the last refuge to which a scoundrel clings." And Stephen Decatur said, "Our country in her intercourse with foreign nations, may she always be in the right, but right or wrong, our country." G.K. Chesterton said, "My country, right or wrong, is a thing that no patriot would think of saying. It's like saying my mother, drunk or sober." Now, our 7 principles don't include either patriotism or nationalism, but they do include a call to a united world with a responsible search for truth and meaning and the support of democracy. To live up to those principles, you have to understand both patriotism and nationalism. And right now, nationalism is playing out on our national level. When patriotism and nationalism go amiss, you are left with a nation that's incapable of democracy at all. They're not the same thing. They have a basis in love and loyalty to country, but that's where the similarities end. And we as a country are getting sold a bill of goods right now because we're getting told that the right, the hard right, have a lock on patriotism. And that it's not possible to be a patriot and love your country if you're not an ultra-conservative. And that's just not true. In 2018, at a rally for Senator Ted Cruz in Houston, President Trump said that a globalist is a person who wants the globe to do well, frankly, but not caring about our country so much. He went on to say there's an old-fashioned word that I embrace, nationalism. Now that definition is close, but it's not quite right. Nationalism is the identification with one's own nation and support for its interest, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interest of other nations. Nationalists think they are superior. Their culture, their ethnicity, their interests are so much more important than the interest of others that they fear people who do not share their ideas. And they often devalue people who are different than them. White supremacists and Nazis, they're examples of self-identified nationalists. The Proud Boys have identified themselves as nationalists. Now, I am not hanging this word on anybody who has not hung it on themselves. Patriots are more encompassing in their love of country. And because we're a huge country, patriotism takes a lot of different forms. It often has roots in our freedom, our opportunities, and our hope and generosity. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Now, we all know that's not true for everybody. It's not true that this land is a land of liberty for everyone. But a patriot is willing to hang in there and hope, to critique the wrong and uphold the right. Charles de Gaulle said, patriotism is when your love of your own comes first. Nationalism is when hate for people other than your own comes first. That resonated with me, and it resonated hard in these times. Are you a patriot or a nationalist? Well, that depends. You have to decide how you feel about American exceptionalism. That's the idea that we in the U.S. have a mission and a character that separates us from other nations. Exceptionalism is ingrained in everyday talk about American politics. And you've heard this. We're the peacemaker for the world. We're the policeman for the world. This shapes high-level discussions. In arguments by a foreign affairs scholar in recent years, they said the United States plays a unique role as the world's anchor of liberal ideas. Exceptionalism shapes conversation about domestic policy. It leads us to think that America's internal divisions and problems are distinctive, and by implication that the experience of other countries doesn't tell us anything. We see this in socialized medicine. How many times have you heard someone say, well, yeah, but it wouldn't work here? No, it only works in the other 86 far advanced. Wouldn't work here. We're different. We're special. You say our education programs are failing. Our kids are falling further and further behind. Why don't we look at what the Netherlands are doing, or Sweden, Denmark? Oh no, none of that would work here. We're different. We're American. The other idea is that we are called to colonize, to take control of things we didn't originally own and make them ours. Exceptionalism is wrong for a lot of reasons, but one of the first is that it complicates the task of building a global coalition to actually defend freedom and democracy. We need that kind of a coalition. Democracy is perceived to be in retreat right now around the globe. Russia is at war with the Ukraine without reason. China is working its way to having the world's largest economy. The United States needs all the friends it can get. Rhetoric about U.S. exceptionalism doesn't help build alliances. It undermines the country's capacity to deal with one of the most challenging aspects of democratic governance. And that's the problem of managing sharp internal divisions without resorting to methods that crush liberty and respect for minorities. Read a history book and you'll see we've got a lot of experience with this problem. But so do other countries. Some, like India, the most populous liberal democracy, deal with it on a much larger scale. We can learn across borders. But if we're special, we have no ability to learn anything. I actually had someone tell me last week, why can't other countries just get it through their head that inches and miles? Why do they do it wrong? And I asked him at the time, I said, do you know how many countries use inches and miles and cups? And they said, well, most of them. I said, 3 of them. 3. The entire rest of the planet. We're the ones who can't learn. In this century, the pursuit of traditional American ideals requires new ways of thinking. If we are truly ambitious to advance freedom and democracy, we gotta do it differently. To defend these ideals, we all have to work together. We need a new point of view. Call it unexceptionalism. Acknowledge the commonalities as well as the differences. We are the land of the pilgrim's pride, the land of the noble free. As long as we recognize we're not alone in that pride and that nobility. When my late British husband heard this song for the first time, he went, well, you stole that one. I took him to see Plymouth Rock. Any of you ever seen Plymouth Rock? Never take someone from London to see Plymouth Rock. He said, it's a bloody great bump. They sailed over 1,000 miles across an ocean to hit the only rock in town. Y'all weren't special, you couldn't steer. But if we are not uniquely qualified to be some sort of leader, if that's not what our role is, what are we supposed to do? How does UUism fit in with all this? I don't know about you. How many of you grew up with the Pledge of Allegiance every morning in your classrooms? Most of you? Okay. I still get a lump in my throat when I hear the Star-Spangled Banner, see the flag waving. My grandfather served. My brother is Special Forces 101st Airborne. My other brother couldn't sign up, so he went over with a private firm. I still cry at the Budweiser Clydesdale commercials. You know which ones I'm talking about. I love the United States. We've lost the distinction between being a patriot and being a nationalist. Patriotism means you see the flaws, that you are willing to get out there and be constructively critical. You offer critique and then you help find the solutions. A patriot loves their government and their country enough to point out when its flies unzipped and its slip is showing, and to say, you gotta do better. That's a patriot. You love your country. Nationalism is patriotism on steroids and maybe on crack. It approaches idolatry. The worship of God and nation are woven into the same fabric. You can't tell one from the other. When the pastor of a large evangelical megachurch calls anyone who criticized the U.S. invasion of Iraq a traitor, can you imagine going to church and being called a traitor for criticizing your country? Your country is not God. It was not divinely sent. You criticize that sucker. With nationalism, we are back to the presumption that we are called out by God. And to the extreme, it's a dangerous thing. It gives us permission to do anything because God's on our side. Patriotism calls us to a higher ethic. Our nation and its founding was a gift. It was established with ideals of freedom of religion and speech and justice, even though they didn't get it right, let's face it. It was for white men. It was for landowners. We know that. It wasn't perfect. Somewhere I read the following statement: when patriots wave the flag, they're fully aware that it symbolizes and represents ideals, but not every decision and action our government makes. When nationalists wave the flag, they're using it as an idol to sanctify whatever America does. And if you think about some of the political actions we've seen lately, that is very true. Patriotism takes pride in the history of the nation, but focuses on the future. It works toward the achievement of the ideals of the Founding Fathers, knowing that they were not originally intended to include everyone and trying to do better. Nationalism looks to the past to defend past policies and events, and deems that all that the nation has done was good and righteous. For those who have openly claimed that they are nationalist, I truly always hope that they are ignorant, that they are not aware of the ugly and dangerous history of this term. Nationalism will not ever be something to seize with pride. There is no pride in hatred. Hermann Göring, chief of Nazi propaganda for Hitler's Third Reich, wrote this: "The people can always be brought to the bidding of its leader. Tell them they are being attacked. Tell them they are in danger. Then denounce the peacemakers for the lack of their patriotism and for exposing the nation to danger. This works the same way in any nation, even a democracy." Sound familiar? A little close for comfort. Quite a few politicians have become Chicken Little. We're being attacked, we're being invaded, we're in danger, the sky is falling, flee for your lives. Don't do any of that. Rise up for your beliefs. Choose patriotism and truth over nationalism, fear, and lies. Even though the temptation is there, even for us, you're called by our free faith and our UU polity to live your values in the world. You're called to responsibility rather than to proud claims of false superiority. You're called to be unexceptional rather than following manifest destiny. Sing America, but don't ignore our faults and our flaws. Our country, 'tis of thee, with all of your rights and all of your wrongs. Be proud and critique every day. This is the intersectional work of justice and the purest form of patriotism. We are not alone. We're part of an amazing global community. May we and every nation be one world dedicated to peace and justice, equity and beauty. But it's going to take human hands to do this work. And those hands are your hands. They're Republican, they're Democrat, they're socialist, they're independent, they're green, they're yours. All of us, not nationalists isolated behind a wall of hatred, but patriots proud of our country and determined to make her shine. So it's up to you. Let freedom ring. Amen. We extinguish our chalice, but carry the light of love, equity, and justice into the world. May we honor the good work of all nations and fight against hatred wherever it appears. May we work tirelessly for a world at peace. Our final song today is one almost everyone knows, "This Land Is Your Land." We're going to sing 2 verses. I promise I'm not going to make you sing all 9. So we're going to do the "This Land Is Your Land, This Land Is My Land," that one, and then the "As I Was Walking That Ribbon of Highway" verse, and then we're going back and repeat the "This Land Is Your Land" verse. So please rise in body or spirit as you're willing, and sing out on This Land Is Your Land. This land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream Water. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from Redwood Forest to the Gulf waters. This land was made for you and me. May we always remember that this world was made to be shared together. Peace, ashe, and may it be so.